안녕하세요. 다들 좋은 한 주 보내고 계신가요? 오늘은 저번 주에 이어서 GraniteShares의 CEO인 Rhind의 인터뷰를 이어서 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 자, 2부 영상에서는 마켓 크래시를 지금까지 100% 맞춘 지표의 움직임과 리세션의 가능성, 그리고 지금 같은 시기에 캐시를 큰 비중 보유하고 있는 것에 대해서 어떻게 생각하고 계시는지, 그리고 비트코인 ETF에 대한 이야기가 요즘 많이 나오고 있는데 가상화폐에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하시는지 나눌 예정이고요. 인터뷰 마지막 부분에는 투자를 처음 하시거나 투자 경험이 없으신 분들께 나누고 싶은 조언도 말씀을 해주시니 가능하면 많은 분들께서 마지막까지 반드시 시청을 하셔서 이분의 조언을 여러분들의 투자에 적용하시기 바라겠습니다. 자, 그러면 디스클레이머만 듣고 영상 바로 보도록 하겠습니다. 지금 무무에서 새로운 어카운트를 만들 경우에 무료로 주식을 16개나 주는 프로모션을 하고 있는데요. 어카운트를 만들고 100불만 디파짓 하셔도 주식 5개를 무료로 받게 되고 1000불을 디파짓 하시고 60일간 그냥 어카운트에 두시기만 하셔도 주식 15개를 무료로 받게 되고 5000불을 디파짓 하시고 60일간 어카운트에 두었을 때는 주식 15개와 구글이나 테슬라를 무조건 받게 된다고 합니다. 이렇게 주식 16개나 무료로 받을 수 있는 기회를 놓칠 이유는 없다는 생각에 여러분들과 이 프로모션을 나누고 있습니다. 자, 그 외에도 제가 진행하는 페이트리온 서비스를 통해서 15불에 매수한 테슬라나 87불에 매수한 엔비디아, 그리고 올해 초에 멤버들과 함께 90불대 매수한 아마존, 구글이나 7불에 매수한 팔란티어와 같은 장기 투자 종목들의 매수나 단기적으로 차트 분석을 통해서 리스크 테이킹을 가능한 적게 하면서 매달 수익을 챙기고 있는 트레이더들, 그리고 제가 보유한 주식을 단 한 주도 팔지 않고 프리미엄으로 수익을 내는 콜 옵션과 함께 격주로 줌 미팅을 통해서 마켓이나 제가 눈여겨보는 주식들에 대한 인사이트를 나누고 있는데요. 이런 서비스에 관심 있으신 분들께서는 아래 링크를 클릭하셔서 지금 같은 마켓을 함께 헤쳐나갔으면 좋겠습니다. 제가 만든 컨텐츠들은 어디까지나 정보 전달을 위한 영상들이기 때문에 절대 영상만 보시고 주식들을 매도하지 마시기 바라고요. 본인 스스로 반드시 리서치를 더 하신 다음에 판단을 내리시기 바라겠습니다.
I'm not an expert in oil, but I know that, petroleum goes into almost everything that we use. And if oil goes up to 100, do you see that the inflation that's coming down right now, there's a possibility that the inflation is not done and that it could actually rise up again?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened in the last couple of weeks in terms of some inflation numbers that came out, albeit it's a small amount, but it's still kind of going in the wrong direction because of the increase that we've seen over the summer in energy prices and food prices. So gasoline prices, increasing, and that all feeds into inflation numbers. So it could cause a problem again, but most likely this time it could be a little bit like what happened just before 2008, where, oil briefly rallied to almost $150 a barrel. Before then, the whole economy came down and it went down to about 30, I think, at the low. So it could be one of those situations where you have a flourish in oil and that creates a lot of demand destruction in the economy. And that's maybe one of the tipping points that causes the market to come down.
I look at the inverted yield curve, almost every day these days because it's climbing and it's uninverting. And I think based on the previous pattern, you have a steep inverted yield curve, it uninverts, and then 4 to 6 months, you have the recession. But the other thing is, I've heard that in most of the recessions or market crashes, you have an all-time high, then you have a steep pullback, and then you have another all-time high that makes people think, oh, it's over. And usually we see like a melt up that we saw, in the dot-com bubble or even the subprime. But do you see the possibility that maybe we might have another melt up or rise before the real major crash comes in 2024 or in the future?
Quite possibly. And a lot of people were talking about that this summer, when, certainly some of the stocks like Nvidia you were talking about, had a huge run this year with AI. And not just Nvidia, but a lot of the big tech companies had really big runs this year. So I think there was some talk around, July, August time, that there could be another melt up, that was a kind of final throw. That hasn't happened that way, and I don't think it was. I think that this year really has been about fundamentals for a lot of these companies, and the earnings have been good. And a company like Nvidia has justified the stock move by posting amazing earnings. So it's certainly the case that can happen and has happened. A lot of that is just, emotion that people, put into particular stock market highs. When market comes down, people want to buy, not knowing that, perhaps that might be the market kind of on its way down again. But, we'll have to see. this time around, people always say it's going to be different.
I think Ray Dalio says that, cash is trash. But for your personal investments, do you think that having cash on the side at a market like we have right now is a good option? Or do you think even in an uncertain market, you should be invested 100% in an ETF or some sort of asset?
Really depends, I think, on time horizon, because at some level, if you think about a retirement account, so a 401k, etc., probably most people, if they're young up, and even though it should be in 100%, in equities, and you don't change that, regardless of whether there's a threat of a recession or not, you keep adding to your retirement. So it really depends on time horizon. I think if you're a market timer, or if you think you can time the market, then clearly that would be the time to pull back and maybe have some more cash, etc. I'm not saying that that's just about market timing, but that's when I think people want to be a little bit tactical and try and think that they can get an edge by behaving in a certain way. It's difficult to do, but again, I think the most important to think about is always time horizon, and that over the long run, the market will go up, but you have to be patient.
I think recently there's a lot of big institutes like Fidelity or even BlackRock trying to file an ETF for Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies, and was wondering what you thought about the whole category of crypto becoming an actual asset for normal people to have the ability to even invest in. Do you think that's very, very risky, or do you see Bitcoin ETFs being a real thing in the future?
I personally am not that into it, I have to say. So the reason I think is that I always kind of come back to simple principles, like what problem does it solve that exists today? And when I think about all the things that people who are very pro cryptocurrency will say, none of it ever feels like something that is genuine, in terms of solving a problem, a real problem that will make everybody's life better. Where I do see it clearly is a speculation, and a lot of people who got into crypto and saw the prices skyrocket, very much from a speculative perspective. People did very well, and I could see the attraction in that. I think also when the price crashed, as I said, the first kind of crypto winter, people said, no, it's not about the Bitcoin, or it's not about the crypto, it's about the technology, the blockchain technology. Then obviously when the blockchain technology didn't necessarily advance to anything that was, necessarily claimed by, a series of people who adopted crypto, price obviously rallied again, and people said, no, it's not about the blockchain technology, it's about the price. So I think, look, there will be ETFs on crypto, and I think so long as people remain interested in the asset class, will still be there. But there are a lot of regulatory problems that have led particularly here in the US, regulators to kind of regulate a lot of the alternative coins, out of the market. So the pool of coins available shrunk a lot. Things like Bitcoin will probably survive, but I think the future has to depend on whether people can get back on board with the prospect of the price increasing, from here. And I think to buy it at $30,000 or whatever a coin, you have to believe it's going to 60 or higher really in order to do that. And I'm not sure there are, that group of investors I think is a lot smaller now than it was before FTX and all of the other scandals.
I think that's why, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger says that it doesn't have any intrinsic value, and all you're doing is just waiting for the next person to come in and buy it at a higher price. I would love to hear if you had like a very important advice, or you would tell your, son or family how you would approach stock investment. I would love to hear, your philosophy. And then finally, I'm pretty sure you had made some mistakes on your, career path, and would also love to learn from, your mistakes and what you kind of learned from those.
Yeah, I think going back to the boring answer is always that you invest in broad benchmark, S&P 500, etc. And it's really about the timeline. And obviously, the longer you can hold it, the better off that should be over time. And so you can really make it as simple as you want. But like you said, I think when it comes to investing, and if people have lost money, in 2021 or looking, the positive about that is that with any investing, it's a skill or it's a discipline. And you need to be doing it to start learning. So you can't become an expert in investing without starting somewhere. And so even if you lose money, they're still teaching you something. Like you're going through an experience whereby I would hope that all of that makes you more knowledgeable about the market and about how things work. And I think, building up that knowledge is ultimately really helpful. It's just whenever we learn something new, there's not necessarily one way to do it. And we have to go through a learning experience. So I think that's really what the key is that as long as people are doing it, so you start by saying, most important thing is to invest. So just to get started. And don't worry too much, clearly assuming that you're not talking about risking a huge amount of capital, a small amount of capital, that you're prepared to risk. And then it's really just learning.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think we kind of gone through a lot of topics today, but again, I just want to really thank you for your time. And I think as, the market changes by the end of 2023 or even next year, I would love to, follow up and hear your insights on how the market changes and have you as our guest on our future interviews as well. So again, thank you very, very much. I know you're a very busy person, but thank you for accepting my invitation and being a guest on my channel.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
조금이라도 도움이 되셨다면 주위 분들과 나눠주셨으면 너무 고맙겠고요. 구독과 라이크를 해주시면 더욱 감사하겠습니다.